Me and Cooper are the worst, most sucker MCs in the world. We have bad breath, we smell bad, and everybody that we've dated cheats on us because we're not good partners. We have bad teeth and they're rotting, and we're poor, and we come from a bad family, and there's photos of our girlfriends sucking other guys' dicks. All right, we had to start over the episode after 2 minutes.
Yeah.
Well, let's get back to me burping into the mic.
Yeah. Well, we talked about our personal lives too much, which you got to remember as a podcast hosted by two guys nobody knows, I don't know if people really care that much.
Well, here's the problem with talking about your personal life on a podcast like this. The 8 people that listen, you might be one of those people.
They might be the people in your personal life.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And most likely that'll be who it is.
It is funny to like have a podcast where you're just like, you just talk shit about like people you know, but then the podcast never gets successful. So all you did was just publicly air out grievances to like your closest friends and nobody else for 6 months. And then you're like, yeah, it didn't work out. And it's just like, yeah, you just talk shit.
Yeah, and it's like your friends aren't going to show this podcast to anybody. They're going to recommend the podcast.
No. They're going to be like, is Cooper talking about me right now? What the fuck? That's bullshit. Everybody's trying to bullshit us, though.
We're kind of, when we don't deal with it. We don't deal with it well at all.
No, we don't deal with it well at all. I just want to let everybody listening to this know if you try and fuck with us, we won't deal with it well at all.
We'll go home. We'll run a warm bath.
If you fuck with me, I'll go home.
Yeah.
I will just go home. I go to the Comedy Store, I get one negative thing said about me, and I go, nope, and I go home.
Yeah, I quit. And then you come back the next day.
Hey, dumbasses, you just made me quit.
Yeah. You go up to somebody that's just talking shit, and you're like, hey, you can't fire me, I quit. And they're like, I didn't hire you.
They're a customer. I go up to customers at the Comedy Store all the time. I say, listen, motherfucker, I don't work for you. And then I take off my apron that I bring to work, and I throw it on the ground.
Yeah, why do you bring the apron to work all the time?
Because I like to storm out, so I like to throw it off and throw it on the ground and say, I had enough of this bullshit. Like, you're a door guy. Stop wearing an apron. It is what it is.
You look ridiculous. Why does it say kiss the chef on it?
I had a weird thing last night at work where I was sitting at the podium where you check people in, and then people were exiting the show, and a lady just came up and asked to drink my already drank from water. And this has happened like 5 times. Stop with your goddamn nose.
That's what it must suck.
Everybody hates it. But
yeah.
Like 5 times a night, people just come up and be like, can I have your water? And it's like, and I just looked at her like, what? And then she looked at me like I was almost being an asshole. And I was like, well, it's drank from. And I gave her one that wasn't drank from. And she was like, oh, you get a good review. And I was like, you're fucking insane. Who does this?
The drunkest people in the world.
Yeah.
You work at the area where there's the drunkest people maybe in the history of the world.
People turn primal when they're drunk. They're just like, I need to acquire water. I cannot.
They don't even understand the concept of wealth.
No.
Their idea of wealth is just, I need to be hydrated.
People get drunk and they're like, our modern concept of wealth are so skewed and away from actual survival instincts. People have completely lost the thread of humanity. That's all anybody talks about when they're drunk.
And they're like, what? I have to get money to buy IVs full of water so I feel hydrated immediately?
That ain't real wealth.
No, it's not.
They're like, I want to be fat. I want to be the fattest man in this bar.
It is funny, like, it used to be fat was a symbol for, like, having a bunch of money.
Yeah, we should try that.
You think we should try being fat?
We should get really fat and then go to, like, hipster Silver Lake bars and be like, look at you peasants. Look how large and robust I am. And then, like order a bunch of food and cover up the whole table and eat it, like, with our hands.
Yeah.
But be like, I bet everybody's looking at us with envy.
You hit on a woman. You hit on a woman and you're like, hey, baby, I have a bunch of wealth. Look at this. And you slap your belly and it just undulates.
Yeah, yeah.
Oh, you think these skinny ass motherfuckers have money? Check this shit out.
Hello.
Can they undulate?
I have barbecue sauce on my fingers. I'm 350 pounds. You can tell I'm doing well.
I'm 350 pounds, 5 feet tall.
This is a Seiko watch, bitch. She's like, isn't that like a cheap watch? You're like, bitch.
You have a really expensive watch, but it's covered in barbecue sauce.
Yes, this is my very nice watch, and it is covered in sweet baby rays.
From McDonald's.
That would be funny. My way of being rich is I get really nice clothes, and then I get just them covered in ketchup and barbecue sauce, and I'm like, look at my opulence. My God, I'm doing well. You can really tell. You can definitely tell I'm doing well. Do you know sand is a big problem?
Sand?
We're running out of it. It's like the second or third most used resource. It's a finite resource. We use it for concrete, and we have been taking too much sand from beaches and the ocean. So there's like 25 islands in Indonesia that have disappeared because we took sand off the ocean floor and it fucked up the water levels, and then it just ruined 25 islands where people lived. Did you know this is happening?
No.
We're making places disappear. And then there's like beaches where they're taking so much sand, the beach is gone.
You know, to them, it's not there's not enough sand problem. To them, it's like, oh, the crabs are visible. There's crabs everywhere.
There's crabs everywhere now. I mean, I don't know. Maybe the crabs leave. I don't know if crabs can chill.
What do you think, they swim?
Well, no, they walk on the bottom of the water.
Oh, yeah, I forgot that crabs can do that.
That's how crabs get around. I mean, they fall to the... They don't float. If crabs floated, they'd be fucked.
Oh, yeah, dude. You'd be swimming and just see a crab just try to dog paddle his way.
It's got to be crazy for the... you burped into the mic. There's got to be crazy for the perspective of a crab, because there's just thousands of them walking around the sea floor. And then from their perspective, they can't see above them. So all they see is just crab. That's horrible. It must be horrible to be a crab. It must really be terrible. If you really think about it, because sometimes they fight each other and they like eat each other, you know? And there's just thousands of them. They don't work together.
One thing that stuck with me for a very long time, I remember seeing a bunch of ants. This is in my house when I was a kid, and they were all crowded around a big ant, and they killed the big ant, and then they took its head off.
I wonder if they ate it.
That's what I assumed they were doing.
Was it like a red ant and it was a bunch of little black ants?
No, it was one of those big black ants.
I wonder if that was like the queen, if they mutinied and killed the queen.
I feel like that's not what the queen looks like. I think the queen has like a big ass.
Yeah, I think queen ants might actually have a big ass and possibly wings.
Yeah, and like a big fat pussy.
Yeah.
A big meaty fat pussy.
Yeah.
Oh, great! It's the time of the episode where everybody starts jerking off to bug pussy.
Yeah, bug pussy. That is something we'd be into on this podcast. Different bug pussies. Damn, that pussy's made out of a bronze-colored exoskeleton. I guess, I mean, it's a dumb podcast topic, but I guess I really don't think about bugs' vaginas or their penises. I don't.
Do they have them? I know snakes, they have, like, their genitals are inside of them. So they're just fucking all the time.
How does that work?
They're fucking themselves. Well, I think, I don't know. I think maybe, I don't know, if there's any, like, if Kurt is watching this, maybe he can give us some info.
I think snakes, like, wrap around each other.
Oh, that's romantic.
Like a candy cane.
That's, like, really romantic.
I feel like bugs just have sort of, like, you ever seen, a fighter jet get refueled by a bigger plane?
Yeah.
I think that's how bug sex is, where it's just like a stick into a sort of hard metal hole.
There's also a chance they maybe don't fuck.
They have to fuck.
But, like, maybe they like...
That's why all these questions are interesting, because there has to be a way for them to fuck.
Well, their fucking might just be, like, one of them lays eggs on one's head, and then, like... Because there's, like, bugs where, like, other bugs lay... There's, like, some sort of wasp, like, that, like, lays its eggs onto, like, some other sort of bug, and, like, it kills the bug. But it kills the bug really slowly.
I think I've heard that. But I think the eggs would still have to be incubated. Like, I think a bug would have to fuck another bug for then that bug to lay eggs and have those eggs hatch into bugs. It's like a chicken. Like, if a chicken doesn't get fucked, it just lays... infertile eggs or whatever, not infertile, but
the delicious eggs. You call them infertile eggs. I call them the ones I pick up at the grocery store.
Yeah. So I wonder if a bug would be the same thing.
So that means like the chickens are kind of just shooting blanks at some points.
Every day they shoot a blank. I think like they shoot a blank every day as long as they don't get fucked. But if you get a rooster, then he fucks the whole hen house, and now you don't get eggs anymore. Now you just get more chickens or more roosters. I don't know how it works.
Yeah, and that's what PC culture wants America to be. They want it to be a hen house with no roosters.
Okay. So yeah, PC culture wants women to never have sex again. And then,
well, I don't know. They want them to have sex, but with like each other, and then it wants the men to be neutered by putting fluoride in the water supply.
And who's running this?
It could be a lot of people that run this. It could be.
Is it the mayor of LA, Johnny Dogshit?
It could be the mayor of LA.
You know what I found out because we were talking about the mayor of LA, Johnny Dogshit? I found out that today is actually a holiday. It's motherfucking parking ticket day. This guy made a holiday called Parking Ticket Day, where if you parked anywhere on the street, you're getting a ticket right now.
And it says for the reason underneath it, it's just like, just fucking cuz.
Just fucking cuz. It says just fucking cuz, and then they just leave like some tar on your car. And
God, I'm not happy about Tow Your Car Day.
Tow Your Car Day is tomorrow. If you thought Parking Ticket Day sucked, Tow Your Car Day is tomorrow. It fucking sucks.
Yeah, and with him in charge, Traffic Day is every day.
Yeah. Well, he's trying to get No Tire Day into where you
he's trying to get Steal Your Hubcap Day passed.
He's calling it Cinder Block Sunday. It's where you walk out, your whole car's on blocks. It's fucking bullshit.
That's one of those stereotypes about LA that like you don't, you've seen those movies from the 90s where one of the stereotypes about LA is it's like military surplus stores everywhere. You know what I'm talking about?
Is that a stereotype that we have a lot of those? Because I think...
I feel like that was one of the stereotypes I came here expecting.
Oh, okay. I mean, I definitely grew up with a good amount of them, so I guess I didn't think it was any more than anywhere else.
It is crazy. Like, I was thinking the other day about what I thought LA was going to be before I moved here. And I swear to God, in my brain, I was just like, it's just going to be like New York, but with less gay people. And it's like, I don't know why I thought that.
Yeah, why would there be less?
I think there actually is less. But like I think for most of the country hates LA, and they like New York. But the one part of New York they don't like is there are like a lot of gay people there.
I think they understand New York. New York is a more understandable city because I've been thinking about this. It's like LA has no water source, and we like kind of shouldn't exist as a city.
Oh, absolutely,
but,
we shouldn't.
New York and Chicago and like several other places have like water sources right there, so it like makes sense why a city would exist there. And LA just doesn't really make sense why a lot of the stuff here exists because it's manufactured and stuff. So I think people like don't like New York, but at least it makes sense to them. Where they're like, all right, the boroughs, the island, the rivers, I understand it. With LA, you're like, why does that place exist? It pisses me off. It seems like they don't need to be there. Seems like it takes a lot of,
Maybe that's what they mean when they say LA's so fake. They're like, it's an artificial city. We stole it.
Yeah, I mean, if you think about it, LA's like, yeah, it's like Saudi Arabia. It's just sort of like popping up out of nowhere.
It is interesting. LA, Vegas especially, just has this, like, there's a kind of an artificiality to just living in the city. To, like, being in the city. Las Vegas just looks like everything's made out of plastic and, like, asbestos.
Yeah. It's
like, if we found out all those signs were made of asbestos, I wouldn't be like, oh, huh. I wouldn't be like, no way.
Yeah, it's a lot more clear in Vegas because especially places like don't do that into the mic. Sorry. Especially like places like Arizona too. Places just look like you doing cocaine. What's going on?
I'm just like
goddamn
clogged
drug
up.
Addict.
Man,
you're not clogged up. You're a drug addict. Nah, man. Don't bullshit me, man. I know cokeheads. You a cokehead. You off beak, man. You came in here 2 hours late, beaked.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, but I think what upsets people about LA is that a lot of it just looks like it just sort of popped up out of nowhere. And a lot of it's like one story because we're all spread out, And then in New York, it's like, oh, this makes sense. This is where all the water is. This is a good port city. You didn't have a lot of space, so you're on top of each other. everything here makes sense. But LA, there's just no sense to it.
I will say they also hate San Francisco. San Francisco is like, it's the city that makes maybe the most sense.
San Francisco is, yeah, it's probably the city that makes the most sense in California, I'd say. It has like a natural, what's it called? Deep water.
I mean, it might be the most beautiful city, like from a sheerly natural resources viewpoint. It might be the most beautiful city in America.
It's really gorgeous to look at. And then you walk around it and you're like, there's nothing to do here anymore.
But you walk around it and you're like, everyone here sucks or is homeless.
Yeah.
And at least in LA, it's like everybody sucks or is Hispanic or homeless.
I think that's why San Francisco sucked now, because like at one point it was like a real city where like artists were still able to live in the city. Like the 60s were cool because like the Grateful Dead could afford a house on Haight Street. And now that house is like probably $5 million. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Because it's a gorgeous house in a nice area. But it's like, once they priced out all the artists, then all the culture leaves the area, which is what a lot of cities are doing. And they're like, why is our city so boring now? It's like, well, you priced out anybody that like creates stuff, and you have to keep rent low to keep artists or anybody in your city. And now you just have people who all they do is work at a tech company and then consume like very boring food. Then there's no market for an actual city. There's no market for like a small empanada business anymore because all the people who eat those got priced out, you know? And it's like, now even gentrifiers are getting gentrified out. Because now the East Bay, like Oakland and all that shit, Oakland's getting gentrified super bad because nobody can afford to live in SF anymore.
Yeah.
So it's like even Oakland fucking sucks. So everybody just, I don't know, I guess they go to like Vallejo or San Jose or something. I don't know how it works over there.
I was reading a short biography of like this comic artist from San Francisco in the 60s. They're talking about how he lived in the back of a comic book store for like $10 a month. Like that was his rent, it was like $10 a month.
Right.
It was like on the Tenderloin, and then they said he used to like just, there was a window and he would stare outside the window and just watch people stab each other. And that's why his comic art was so fucked up.
Yeah, and that guy's name would be something like Dick Filth.
Yeah, that would be.
And he could afford to live in that city for as long as he wanted.
Yeah,
you know?
Dick Filth can't live in San Francisco anymore.
There is no place for Dick Filth to live. And the problem is when Dick Filth lives in some suburban or boring place, it's like he's a vector for all the stimuli, but now he's got so much less stimuli. That's what kind of sucks, is like the most exciting stuff will happen in a big city like LA, New York, or San Francisco, but then you price out the people who are kind of interesting and make the city or maybe report on the city.
Yeah.
And then you're just left with like boring people in an exciting looking place. And now the whole thing is just a facade.
Yeah.
Because you're like, all the things that made this place are gone and everybody's just sort of living in the ruins of it. That's what SF feels like. It feels like there was a town here. Everybody from the town left, and now it's just the ruins of that town mixed in with new additions of like egg slut or like food nobody actually likes, like Instagram food.
I was thinking about the difference between LA and San Francisco when I was there, and San Francisco feels like the apocalypse had just happened, or the apocalypse like had happened and they're rebuilding, and Los Angeles looks like the apocalypse is currently happening. Especially because of our mayor, Johnny Dog shit.
Yeah, it really sucks.
When he passed the holiday on fire day.
I hate that. He fucking just passed a new humidity law, which is just to have boiling vats of water located around the city to fill the city up with steam, so it's just hot and wet all the time.
He just passed Bugs Bunny law.
What's that?
That's like when a bunch of rabbits just fuck with you all day.
See, I fucking hate that, man. This motherfucker just made Dirt Day, where you gotta do everything you have to do it with some dirt on you. I hate it. It's bullshit.
I hate Worm Christmas.
Worm Christmas sucks.
It's my least favorite Christmas.
You gotta eat worm cake. Your mom's wearing a worm dress, and she's crying. It sucks, dude.
Yeah.
I hate it here. I hate being inside this goddamn apartment that Johnny Dog shit forces me to pay $8,000 a month for, just to fill it up with worms and shit. Yep, it's Worm and Glass Day, where all the streets are covered in worms and glass. You can't pick up either of them. It sucks.
Nailing your tire day sucks.
I hate nailing your tire day.
Johnny Dog shit purposely puts a nail in front of every car that's parked.
Then they got It's Just Blanks Day, where motherfuckers come up to you and shoot you point blank with a blank, and you freak out, and they're like, "It's just blanks, you dumbass."
Yeah.
Like, it's still dangerous. That's how Alec Baldwin killed that lady.
There's also every neighborhood is downtown day, where they start building a bunch of skyscrapers and shit in your backyard.
Yeah, I hate when every neighborhood is downtown day, where they put up paper mache buildings and then robotic homeless people who try and fight you.
I'm sick of the robotic homeless people he has and the robotic feral dogs.
Then they got Blood in Your Food Day. Any restaurant you go to, the food you get has a little bit of blood in it. How is that even a fucking holiday? I do like Hip Hop Abraham Lincoln Day, though. That's cool.
I hate We Love Hair Day, which is when everybody's walking around having to eat a whole bowl of hair.
And I hate that he calls it We Love Hair Day, because it makes it act like we all, but we don't.
We don't like this.
You gotta it's so hard to eat a bowl of dry hair.
There's a day for every single thing.
Yeah,
it sucks. Hole in your shirt day sucks. But hole in your shirt day coincides with everybody who has a hole in their shirt gets their ass kicked day.
And they got Cut Your Grandma's Hair Day, which is whether or not your grandma wants her hair cut, you have to give her a buzz cut. And it sucks because she gets sad. I was thinking about my grandma recently because she was always very supportive of me and she was an artist and stuff. And sometimes I'll think about her because she's dead. And then I was thinking about it and I was like, my grandma was really supportive. We had a super close relationship. I don't know if she would like everything I do. I was like, there's actually a chance she could see like the podcast and the stand-up and be like, this is bad, actually.
But like, what did she do? What was her art?
She was a painter.
Oh, she's a painter?
Yeah.
Painters don't get this podcast.
Painters don't get this. I mean, I think she would just be like, oh, he's expressing himself. But, she was good at being like, well, I'm not in that context. So I can't know if that's funny.
Yeah.
But sometimes she would get mad at me for telling jokes about family issues.
Yeah.
She'd be like, you stop saying that about your father. What if people heard that? And I was like, I don't know. He did it. And
yeah.
He was like,
well, it's part of my life too. That's how I feel about it, where it's like, well, I had to deal with all of this.
Yeah.
But it's also like, I wouldn't post that. I don't know if I'd post a lot of those clips online, though.
Yeah, there's also a point to be made of like, Cooper, I get it, but also this is your goddamn family.
I mean, they didn't ask
respect.
they didn't ask for you to be a stand-up comedian.
Yeah, stop airing out everybody's shit, man. Like, but,
You're basically, if you're a stand-up, you're just a family gossip.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, fucking Johnny Dog should also just put in Dads on Heroin Day, where your dad starts shooting up smack, fucking a girl named Trish. Fucking sucks. It's bullshit. Stupid.
There's also the Shane's a dipshit day.
Which I think is fucked up.
Yeah, I don't know, man.
People just beat your ass.
There's
So you just burped into the mic again.
This has been a big controversy for the whole podcast.
It's like you're trying to make these gross-ass noises into the mic.
That's what sucks about being a podcast, is it doesn't, like, everyone has to have a podcast, but it doesn't account for the fact that, like, most people's bodies suck.
Well, just move the mic away. You keep...
People need to know what's happening inside of me.
No, they don't.
I mean, this is the point of our own podcast. We're being open.
You're like goddamn Johnny Dog shit. It's not being open to burp into the mic. You're not being vulnerable by having gas and guttural noises come up into the mic. These mics pick up too much, man.
I was reading some Bukowski last night, and it's so funny how much he brings up, like, farting. He's like, he stood up farting.
Really?
Yeah, dude, if you read any of his short stories and shit, I swear to God, I read Hot Water Music. There was every 5 pages, there was, like, somebody farted. And that was back in the day when farting was, like, transgressive. Like, to mention that people farted.
Yeah, he kind of was, like, he was kind of into being gross, I guess.
Yeah.
I mean, I guess that's kind of obvious if you talk about Bukowski, but I guess you don't talk about it too much that, yeah, it's like he was like, I'm an alcoholic and a hard ass, and I have troubles with women because I'm mean to them. And also, I'm shitting my pants. I'm a writer in LA, and I have shat my pants again.
I read a poem last night. One of the poems is just about how much of a fat fucking loser he is. Like, the end of the poem is just, I stepped on the scale and it was like 260 pounds.
It is funny when people kind of like hate Bukowski, where they're like, oh, he's just an asshole, and he gets like applauded for just being openly an asshole. And it's like, Well, yeah, but also a lot of the poems is him being like, I'm such a piece of shit.
I suck ass.
Fuck, man, I suck. Because even the poems where, like, women like him, he's just like, she doesn't know I'm a bad guy, and she shouldn't spend her time with me.
Well, there'll be poems where he's like, yeah, I love my wife. My wife also fucks our landlord for free rent.
Yeah, he is one of those guys, too, to be like, get cucked, but be like weirdly indifferent.
Yeah.
He's like a 0.5% of guys that are like, she fucks other guys, and I don't care, and I don't like or dislike it, really. I
had a friend who was basically like, yeah, I don't care if my girlfriend fucks other guys as long as I don't get an STD. And it's like, well, he's like, you say that, but he also didn't have a girlfriend at the time.
What a weird thing to say if you don't have a girlfriend.
Yeah.
Why would you say that as a single guy? You're just walking around single. You're like, I don't care if my girl fucks other guys. It's like, well, what? Wait till you
just don't get me sick.
Yeah. Just wait till
just don't get me sick with your dirty pussy.
Wait till you get a girlfriend before you start telling everybody that they can fuck her. That's so weird. Just to be like, hey, boys, once I get a girlfriend, just so you know, you can still fuck her.
Pussy's not off limits.
Just letting y'all boys know, once I get a girl, all the homies can have a taste. All the homies get a piece. That's so fun. He gets a girlfriend and he just tells her, he's like, you can fuck my friends. You can fuck
Shane.
You want to fuck Shane?
Oh, you can fuck Shane right now.
I don't care. And she's like, it seems like you want me to fuck your friend. She's like, what? No, I don't care. But I'm telling you I don't care. So do it. So do it. I'll show you how much I don't care.
Yeah, and I also, the whole time you're fucking him, tell him how much bigger his dick is than mine.
I saw some clip of a streamer that was talking about how his girlfriend will cuck him sometimes.
Was it Destiny?
I don't know. He was a white guy.
It was probably that guy.
It was like a white guy with kind of like my length brown hair and maybe like a goatee or something.
You could also say he's like much, much fatter and more ugly than you.
No, he wasn't fat. I don't know how famous.
He was kind of like, if he wasn't Destiny, then I
don't know how fat.
I don't know.
This guy wasn't very fat. He was just talking about how his girlfriend likes to cuck him, and they went on vacation, and they were like, yeah, usually like she'll only fuck, the guy once, but this guy had like a humongous black dick, so she fucked him for like 4 days straight and just cucked me all weekend, and it was a brutal weekend.
Yeah, that's Destiny.
Why do streamers get involved with such humiliation tactics? And I feel like streaming in and of itself is very humiliating for those guys. They often do humiliating things. But then also that other guy who's famous for it, he's like maybe like a half black. I think his name, what is Skino or something?
Yeah, I don't know.
Short hair. But there's one guy that's like famous for going to like an orgy with his girl. And it was like their first time doing that. And then he heard her get fucked by a guy and she like made sounds he's never heard of. And he's like, it's like the thing he's like most famous for. And there's just this long thing with streamers of just being like, then there's also that other guy that's like really famous now. He was like hanging out with Jake Paul. He's like a smaller version of the guy I just mentioned. But he has some hot girlfriend who like openly fucks other. Like they all have girlfriends that like cuck and fuck them. And a lot of what they're famous for is like having horrible lives.
But I think that's kind of the point, though.
Like, I guess it is. I
feel like a lot of content that's like on the internet right now is just designed to piss you off. No matter who you are.
Well, this doesn't really piss me off. It just sort of bums me out that these guys.
It's to make you feel some sort of bad emotion.
Yeah, I wonder if they're like lying, because it's like if that actually happened to you, I don't really get the benefit of telling everybody. I guess shock value, but it's also like if it does get that kind of shock value reaction, I wouldn't really put it past these guys to just lie about the whole thing.
But it's also like, why would you want to be publicly known as the guy whose girlfriend gets railed so much better than you could ever rail her? And you're just like, well, that's actually not true.
I think it's truly because what people get famous for doesn't really matter to them as much anymore, as long as they have a lot of viewers that can generate them some kind of income. Because it's like, for those guys, they're like, yeah, I go around and talk about how I get cucked all the time, but look, I got a nice watch.
Yeah.
So they're like, that's like the exchange for them. Because, I mean, I don't like to be like a society guy, but I think like the whole want to be famous and like the knowledge that a 15 minutes of fame could maybe make you $100,000 for a year.
It's crazy that it is like objectifying women in the most obvious way.
You know what I mean?
Yeah, it's like even as cucks, they're still very sexist. Cause,
Yeah, you're just being a misogynist while your girlfriend gets fucked up the ass.
Yeah, it's like they're almost like using it as a way to prove women suck.
Yeah.
They're like, look, she just keeps fucking all these other dudes, and it's
well,
like,
that's what a lot of guys will take it as.
Yeah,
I feel like probably about half their viewership is like, this is what all women are like.
But then also like the only way they
and it's like that's not what all women are like. That's what most women are like.
And then the way they talk to their girlfriend is like BBL, yes please, or like they don't even say real words. I feel, you know what I mean? They're just like, ooh, big bitty, or like just like say like video, because you know how video game guys talk, like the way you joke in a video game is always very quick because it's like you're playing a live game. And when you play video games for long enough, they get a certain type of humor. You know what I'm talking about?
Yes.
Video game guys where they're like, ooh, quick scope, like they like certain words, you know what I mean? I don't know. It's always like references quick. They like to use video game words out in real life, you know, especially like Minecraft guys will be like, oh, we're in survival mode right now. So like out late or something. And then those guys like talk to women that way. And I feel like the women are immediately just like, this guy's a fucking loser. It's also just like they seem to just market themselves as like, I'm a guy with money you can steal from, because they're like rich nerds.
Yeah.
That their whole thing is like publicly being a rich nerd. And then they like get a lady from one of those podcasts where they try and shame porn stars. And they're like, you're a whore. And they just get like a girlfriend that's one of those women.
Yes.
And then it's very weird.
It's kind of weird how like so much of media now is just like trying to make men hate women more.
I think it's weird that there's a weird subsection of social media that's like this fake world people create of like alpha guys who only care about like money and status and mistreating women, and then women who are like the female counterparts to those men. And it's just this whole ecosystem where everybody's like cheating on each other and like vying for some sort of social status. And it's just this fake made up world where they're like, that's how it is. You have to do this or your girl will fuck 8 guys. And it's like, you guys are just making all this up.
You know what's crazy?
Does that make sense?
Yes, it does.
It's like, this isn't real.
You know what was crazy? There's a weird thing, because I was actually watching clips of one of those podcasts yesterday, and the main idea behind it was based around, there's this like 28-year-old man, he's a virgin, he's trying to find a wife who's like not had sex with a bunch of guys, and like he's like a good looking, like, you know, athletic guy, and it's like, well, yeah, they also like idealize a male virgin as long as the male virgin also looks like them.
It also has to be a male virgin that like has a big complex about the virginity.
Yeah.
Like they have a hard time being like, yeah, I've just kind of had a hard time meeting people.
Yeah.
And like it's kind of tough for me, when really they're just like, oh, all women today are like this, and like it's just weird. It's just like, if you're a 28-year-old male virgin, like that kind of stinks because you haven't fucked. But also like, there's a lot of women out there who are very afraid of sex and have probably only fucked 3 times by the time they're 28, or maybe not at all. So it's just sort of like, you just need to get off the internet. Like if you're a 28-year-old virgin, you're trying to find somebody who's like not a fucked up freak who hasn't fucked a lot. It's like, don't go on podcasts and be like, I need to get me a biddy. It's like, you're going to find a crazy person. You're going to find another fame-obsessed crazy person. You should go out into the world.
Well, so many people, I feel like, there's a lot of people whose politics is modeled entirely off of reacting to like people they've never met that are just people they've seen on Twitter.
Well, yeah, it's very like middle school where they see people on Twitter act a certain way and then get a girlfriend and want to act the same way. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Where they're like, oh, this is what having a girlfriend is like. It's like, I want her to shake her ass on camera, and then I'll be worried about her cheating on me, and it'll be toxic. And they almost like idealize these things and want them as like, they want to be like reality TV stars where they're like, I got this hot girlfriend, I can't fucking take control of her. And you're like, your whole concept of love and what you should want from a relationship is so made for content that you're just purposely getting into bad relationships all the time to humiliate yourself publicly to get like 1,000 more viewers each. It's just like, I just think about these guys where I'm like, you know, now an online career is very possible with like a podcast or streaming or whatever. But you see the way these guys do it, and you're like, so are you going to be 80 being like, oh, my bitch got fucked again? Like, what? How long can you do that?
How funny, though, would it be like if we had like a close friend who like was like, hey guys, I had this good idea for a grift. I'm gonna pretend to be a virgin and talk about how women suck.
I think like a lot of, especially kids like 4 years younger than us, who like had an iPhone for their first phone, because I think that's a big difference. My first phone was not an iPhone.
Mine was a flip phone.
Yeah, I was something like that. I had like 3 before I had an iPhone. It was like touch several numbers to get one letter or whatever. And I don't want to be like, these younger kids are crazy because we're young, but
Yeah.
I do notice a big difference between the kids that got an iPhone first. That world is much more real to them. You know what I mean? And like the lengths of embarrassment, they'll go farther because they're like, well, this is real. This is worth it. I'm not embarrassed. And to everybody else, they're like, this is just online. This isn't real life. You got to stop acting like this. And they're like, no, this is it. Like, this is everything. This is what, a lot of kids, like a lot of young kids, if you ask them what they want to do for work now, they'll be like, I want to be a video game streamer.
Yeah.
Which is like, and then if you ask kids our age what they want to do, they want to be like, some sort
They
of
want to get into multimedia marketing.
Yeah, or another type of art that's usually considered better. Like kids our age want to be painters as opposed to like.
But I don't know anyone who wants to be a painter.
I guess that's true. I guess we want to be more. We like talking.
Yeah,
we're more of a talky generation. We want to write and do stand up. I mean, we're all about the rhetoric in our generation. We love new words. We love new ways of thinking about stuff. We love reading.
Yeah, we're sick of art. We just want to talk about how we feel about some shit.
Yeah, we just want to create a whole new vocabulary for stuff that already existed and then have that only last for 3 years before we have to replace it with a new word. I think it's cool. It's cool how words cycle.
How long do you keep a Zen in?
As long as I fucking want, dude.
That's a good. They say on the package to keep it in for an hour.
It's like 20 minutes to an hour.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Take
them in and out. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Can't be a slave.
I feel like we could get kids our age, like behind any political thing, if we said that the other side was like planning to ban Zen.
Chuck Schumer's trying to ban Zen.
Yeah, is he Republican?
No, he's Democrat.
Oh, okay.
He's like,
damn, he's gonna ruin the Democratic Party with that shit.
He's like one of the top 5 guys, I think. I think he might be like is he a Speaker of the House or was he? I don't know. I think he's a California guy, but I think he's up in Congress. I think he's.
But the thing is, it's like what, like, because a lot of people I know have gotten like into nicotine through Zens, and it's like, what are they supposed to smoke cigarettes if you fucking make it? Like, people aren't just gonna quit nicotine if you make this shit illegal.
Yeah, they kind of just do the same thing with any drug. If they're just like, we should probably just ban it. You're just sort of like, nicotine has been around for thousands of, like, what are you doing?
Yeah.
Thinking you're going to get people off it. It's also just sort of like, there are just some things you just have to let people have. And nicotine is always going to be one of those things.
Yeah.
Really, like nicotine, alcohol, and weed, you really need to supply to a population. I mean, alcohol is a poison that really kills more people than we want to talk about. But at the same time, they're like the 3 least immediately corrosive drugs or whatever. You know what I mean?
It doesn't melt your brain like meth does.
Like alcohol melts your brain over time.
But we're still like giving people basically speed.
Yeah,
we're giving people speed.
Yeah, and that's that's not good. But yeah, it's like and the only thing I agree with Tucker Carlson about is nicotine being like a very American institution and a basic right that is just like, no, you got to give us nicotine.
Yeah.
Americans, more than any other country, need nicotine. It's crazy in the midst of how America's falling apart to be like, you can't have Zyn. And I would assume they don't like Zyn because it's not a Philip Morris company.
Yeah.
And, it competes with like the Camel Snus and like kind of just, it's an entirely new market of nicotine that Philip Morris doesn't really have any of its claws in. As far as I know, unless they own Zyn. I don't know if they own like Rogue or other companies. But yeah, I think it upsets them that there's this whole burgeoning new market. And if they make their own Zyn, it's just not going to be as popular. There's no brand recognition. They're not the creator of this genre. So it's like nobody will want to fuck with them.
I saw like some sort of foreign Zyn today at the gas station I went to. It was like right out, and it was basically copying the Zyn packages.
Yeah.
Like the entire way. It was like it had some sort of foreign word on it.
Like the font and everything?
It had a different font, but it looked exactly like a Zyn does. Like the same sort of shape of the container, same sort of color scheme.
Yeah.
And it's like fucking I don't know what's the legality of that, but I actually, you know what? I was thinking, should I buy one of those? So it's like, in a way, they're pretty effective with advertising the shit.
Well, yeah, because it's the kind of market where you have Zyn that's like the industry standard. It's usually the most expensive. But then there's also other companies that are like, we offer the same thing, but cheaper. And it just is worse.
Yeah.
But there's a whole market of people that'll be like, well, they have higher milligrams. I like the pack, whatever. They'll get enough people over to always have a smaller business than Zyn. But even if they get a third of their profits, that's like a decent business.
Yeah.
For like a couple guys.
It's kind of like the Zyn equivalent of like malt liquor.
Yeah.
I'm like, this shit gets you way more fucked up than regular Zyn. It tastes terrible. And it will kill you faster, but...
It's like RC Cola or some shit, you know what I mean?
Oh, yeah, I've had RC Cola once.
Like Zyn's Coke, and then everything else is kind of, Rogue is competing, I think, decently.
Oh, yeah?
With the nicotine market. I mean, they're also in all the gas stations, usually. Rogue and Zyn are like the two. And then now there's a ton of just dip alternatives coming out. There's one that's just like... It's practically like packets of tea.
Yeah.
That like might have nicotine infused in it. I don't know.
I had to explain. I remember when I went back home, I was using Zyn, and I was explaining to my relatives who used dip what Zyn was. They had no clue.
It's a very new thing.
Yeah, but it's also just like, it's also a very young thing.
Totally. It's
like 40-year-olds who dip have no clue. A lot of them have no clue what the fuck it is.
Yeah. Because dip is... It's not really great for young people. Even young people, like, for a while, young people could still dip, like, early 2000s, 2010s. But now I think even in most, like, southern states where dip is more popular, I think even now it's like, ew, gross, you got a bottle?
Yeah.
Once there's an alternative to not carry around a bottle of brown spit, it's like, what are you doing?
Oh, yeah.
Get the thing where you don't have to spit publicly.
Oh, yeah, well, you're fucking... I remember getting into the bottles of fucking dip so often. Like, when I was a kid. I remember just like thinking I was drinking just a regular Coke, and then it was just my dad's dip. And Cooper's in the bathroom shaving his nuts. That's like, he told me he was going to do this during the podcast. He was like, I have to have an intermission so I can go in there and shave half of my nuts. Because he's doing this new thing where if you shave half of your nuts, it makes your balls look bigger or something, is what he said. Kind of I don't know, I don't get it. I mean, Cooper's 2 years younger than me. He has like, there's like some different stuff that I just never heard of. Yeah, talking by yourself is hard. I don't know how you do that podcast.
I didn't release it last week. I didn't even post about not releasing it. Nobody, nobody watches it. That's how I keep doing it.
But I do think it's been good for you in terms of being able to just... It's made you like a better broadcaster, I think.
I haven't gotten that much better at it. It's kind of funny. I think I'd get better at it if I really worked hard and like did it for years. But it definitely is a skill that you don't get good at very quickly at all. It seems like, and it seems like definitely it's something that most guys comes to naturally. The guys that are good at it seem to have a natural thing for it, and I only have like 2% of that.
Well, you have to kind of... It feels like if you also have to be able to talk about stuff people care about, Because Bill Burr, I mean, his podcast, a lot of it's just football shit.
Well, I think the thing
Football
is he talks
sports.
about stuff he cares about, and there's enough other people that care about it. And I think that's the only way you get through a solo podcast.
Yeah, I mean...
You gotta talk about your thing.
I don't care. I like never cared about stuff that other people care about. And it sucks.
I don't think that's true. I think you have your interests and there are other people that share those same interests independently. I think that's how it works for everybody. You probably just hear people talking about stuff you would just never care about to begin with.
And then I'm like, well, this guy, more people want to listen to this guy talk about this. I mean, like, ever want to hear me talk about fucking Bukowski or anything.
Yeah, but no, that's not true, because it's like you're reading Bukowski. There's a ton of other guys that like reading Bukowski.
I guess so.
Like, I like Bukowski, and we didn't decide that together.
Damn. So the meetings meant nothing to you?
Yeah, they meant nothing.
The literary readings that we met up and decided what we like?
Yeah, I already liked all that stuff. I mean, you're not the first guy to like anything you've liked.
Well, no, I know that that's true. I just think less people like it than care than care about like something like what a lot of Bill Burr's talking about.
Yeah, I will say I think your interests are a lot more niche than the NFL.
Yeah, for sure.
Like some comic writer that's like talking about, putting cum in a pie or something is like definitely more niche. But there's a whole market of, weird fucking guys that whether or not they've heard of that before would be interested in hearing about it.
Yeah.
And they just, if people watch any kind of podcast, they just want to hear you talk about stuff. So there's a whole Shane verse that, like, when you bring up some artist they might not have heard of, they're like, well, this is still something Shane would talk about.
But it's interesting. There's a lot of, like, famous comedians who their interests they never really ever really talk about. I mean, Louis is super, like, into, like movies and, like, he doesn't ever really publicly talk about, like, fucking Putney Swope or whatever. I mean, he's talked about it, but he doesn't just bring it up all the time.
Well, he does on podcasts, yeah. But
sometimes, but it's not like a constant thing.
No, I mean, I think, also his interests he has good comedian interests because he seems very interested in people and small things that are kind of easy to ignore.
Mm-hmm.
That's why he's like, comedians should stay off their phones because there's a lot of things to notice.
Yeah.
And his jokes are about like, I heard this conversation or my daughter said this or.
That is true.
I mean, he's really good at just being interested in life.
Yeah.
Which like, I think is the best thing you can be is just interested in life and things that are happening and realize that walking out the door is a whole world of new things because like I walk down the street to go to some coffee shop down there and I have like a billion thoughts of like and a billion different emotions or like fears or something like that and the problem is I'm on my phone too much and kids our age are so much that like you build up a wall that makes it harder and harder for actual life to penetrate through. Because what's interesting about life takes more participation than our brains are trained to with the phones. Because with the phones, you don't have to participate too much in what you're watching. It's like aggressive, it's quick, and it's in your face, and then it's gone, But with the real world, it's like a bird in a tree, you gotta zero in on it, and then be like, oh, he has a red chest.
Yeah.
Oh, he's squeaking, and he's chirping in that kind of way. And that just takes a lot more patience and interest than people have.
I've noticed I like to go on walks. I like to walk in my neighborhood a lot or, down both of the streets that are parallel to it. And I try not to look at my phone, but I've noticed that even just like having the music on, it's like I'm almost noticing less.
Definitely.
Like, listening to fucking David Allen Coe talk about how he's a long-haired redneck, I'm more in the, oh yeah, I'm walking around, I'm a long-haired redneck. Well, I'm not looking at that guy trying to break into that car right there.
Well, because you're like defining your experience based off of all your senses, and you're cutting off one of your senses. You're going, instead of hearing the world, I'm going to hear David Allen Coe.
Yeah.
So now your world involves David Allen Coe.
Yeah, I'm not listening to the homeless guy like catcalling the woman down the street.
I mean, that's why music is cool. You can put on music, walk down the street, and it'll really change the whole intensity.
Yeah.
Like you could listen to like Joni Mitchell or you could listen to like David Allen Coe, and those are two very different walks. Like one, you're like the trees, the other, you're like, I'm a goddamn badass.
Oh, yeah. All the music I listen to is like, I'm a cool badass. Like it changes the way I walk, Like I feel like I walk slower a lot of times sometimes when I'm listening to like fucking David Allen Coe or like a lot of the New York fucking rap.
Yeah, genres are interesting. Like I've been listening to a lot more Waylon Jennings as opposed to like Hank Williams and like older country. And yeah, it's a very different thing. Because like Hank Williams is just sort of like talking about God, or it's a lot more like when you listen to it, you kind of feel more like a person that's maybe vulnerable in a part of the world and being like, oh, there's like ups and downs and stuff. And then sort of you listen to Waylon Jennings and you're sort of like, you feel like more of a main character. And then there's also like, thoughts of like, man, I can't keep living this way.
Oh, yeah.
All his songs are just about, it's so interesting. So many of his songs are just about like, I can't stop cheating. I'd like to stop cheating. I mean, that one line, it makes me laugh every time. It makes him laugh when he sings it live, or when he sang it live is in Waymore's Blues.
Yeah.
Where he's like, and every woman she sees looks like a place I came in.
Yeah.
It's such a funny double entendre to be like,
Yeah.
every woman my wife sees looks like a woman I busted a nut in.
Yeah.
And he's like sad about it. That song rules so hard.
It is funny about like you saying about a lot of country music is I've got to stop living this way. I feel like I got way more into country music after I stopped living this way, you know?
Yeah, because you can enjoy it a little more as art.
Yeah.
Because when you're trying to be an actual, be like, I'm an outlaw.
Yeah.
It's like, well, you live in LA. You know what I mean? It's like
you're just a degenerate.
Yeah, you're just a degenerate. You're just an alcoholic. That's why like I listen to Waylon Jennings sometimes with my window open smoking, and I'm like, I hope people driving by don't think that I think I'm the most insane person in the world. You know what I mean? Which is just my own anxiety. Nobody's even hearing it, but
one time I posted a video, a clip, and somebody commented underneath that I just found it. They're like, "Yep, I saw this guy almost get his ass kicked in a bar in Nashville," and I thought about it, and I was like, I had to reply, like, which bar?
What
Like,
bar?
yeah,
What
like,
bar are
I
you
don't-
talking about? That's
yeah.
very outlaw of you.
where it's like I can think of 5 different bars that I've almost got my ass kicked multiple times.
I do think the coolest thing about Waylon Jennings is that a lot of times when people act like Waylon Jennings, they're the biggest fake douchebag in the world.
Oh yeah,
Because you're like, nobody fucking acts like you. But like, the thing about Waylon Jennings is he's one of those guys that like actually acted like that.
yeah,
So it's like he is writing vulnerable songs. They're just
Yeah.
naturally very cool.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
You know what I mean? Even like Waymore's Blues is funny because Shel Silverstein, I guess when Waylon wrote that, said, you wrote the great American folk song.
yeah,
And if you think about that song that way, it's very funny because if you don't think about it that way, it's kind of like a cool guy not feeling great kind of song. Like, yeah, I'm a badass. The world is confusing. But
Mhm.
then if you kind of view it more as a folk song, you're like, oh, this is like a very American folk song because he has an American aura. He has
Yeah.
a very independent, somewhat narcissistic, very egocentric attitude about himself as a main character of this world, but he's
Yeah.
like feeling these emotions and confusion and regret. So it's like, I like it because it is a very pompous folk song. Like, it's not like a Woody Guthrie folk song where it's like, I am not Woody Guthrie, I am the people.
Yeah.
Where Waylon's like, I'm Waylon,
yeah.
and these are my feelings, you know?
Yeah, I'm Waylon, and somehow I'm also the people because
Yeah.
a lot of people have this exact same perspective, even though they haven't lived the exact same life I've lived.
It's kind of nice when we let a guy be an example.
Yeah,
His whole life is just an example. You know what I mean? Like, I think people really feel a kinship with him because they're like, well, even if I'm married and my life is boring, I still feel an outlaw spirit that I feel like Waylon is living for all of us.
Yeah.
I think that's why people like him, is they're like, he's our hero. He's living this piece of shit life that we all know is bad for us, but somebody has to live it.
yeah. I used to be like really into punk rock when I was a teenager.
Like, people just love country music where it's like, don't do what I'm doing. Don't ever do what I'm doing, but I gotta do it. Sorry to interrupt you, but you were listening to punk rock as a teenager?
Yeah, I remember I used to love G.G. Allen, and that was basically the thought process of like, this guy did it, so nobody else has to do it. But then a lot of
Yeah.
people don't understand, like, then they're like, I'm gonna shit on stage and eat it. Everybody's gonna be like, ew. And it's like, no, he was just being the most rock and roll guy possible. So he was like taking it to the extreme, and it's like, oh, so there's no novelty in this anymore.
Well, also trying to be like G.G. Allen is funny because it's like, well, he only acted that way because he was like mentally ill.
Yeah,
And then went to jail and then started a war on the world.
Yeah.
And never got any help that he needed. So it's like,
his name is Jesus Christ Allen.
yeah, it's like if he was doing that because he's mentally ill and kind of can't stop himself and he's just doing whatever comes to him, for you to be like, I'm going to be like that. It's like, well, he wasn't doing it with really any intention. I
Yeah.
mean, there was intention, but it's like manic, crazy people intention. Like,
Yeah.
his intention was like, you know, he wanted to start an army of young people, and that when you come to his shows, it's a recruitment for his army. And if you make it through, that's what he said. You know, he's like, if you make it through my shows, you're in my army. That's
Yeah.
why he would throw shit, piss, punch, and try and rape people at his
Yeah.
shows. Because he's like, if you make it all the way to the end, then we're going to start an army and a revolution. And it's like, yeah, that's a crazy person thought. I mean,
Yeah.
people trying to be him, if you really asked him, they'd be like, no, I'm just a piece of shit. We're not starting a revolution.
Yeah.
But G.G. Allen would hate you. He'd be like,
He,
you're a
like-
fucking pussy. You're a liar.
He used to talk shit on like the guys who were trying to do something similar. He would like talk shit on the dwarves, who are just like lighter. They're like much lighter fucking G.G. Allen guys.
Yeah.
They're much better at music than G.G. Allen is.
Because that's what people don't get, is like, people are like, I'm going to be like G.G. Allen. It's like, that guy like thought he wanted to rule the world. And
I
it's
also
like, he
heard
was trying
that
to use punk music as a tool for like a huge revolution.
his dad would like lock him and his brothers in like some insane shit. Like he would like throw him in a well or some shit.
I mean, probably.
Yeah, I mean,
His early stuff is good. His
like
early...
the country stuff and like, have you listened to the country stuff?
No, I haven't. I'm talking about just like Don't Talk to Me.
Yeah, okay.
Like his early stuff before he went to jail, when it's just kind of regular punk, is like, I like that stuff. I mean, I like Bite It, You Scum, and shit.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
I still like the other stuff, but
I'm not as familiar with the early stuff as I am. I like that, my favorite album of his is The Freaks, you know, Words You Can't Say, Drunks and Junkies, I think it's called.
yeah, I mean, he's a guy that it's like
He also goes through so many genres of music in that album.
yeah, it's like you listen to a guy like that sometimes, you're like, this is cool.
Yeah.
But like people that are like, yeah, he's a god. It's just sort of like, you realize you're just sort of like, you're almost making fun of a mentally ill guy by
Yeah.
being like, because you're acting like he acted with such intention,
Mm?
which is like seeing a guy having a crazy manic episode and then being like, oh, I love his vibe.
Yeah.
To be like, yeah, you're ascribing like a lot to what is just mental illness.
Yeah.
Like this isn't like somebody who acts that way intentionally and maybe with a grander plan has something interesting going on.
Yeah.
Gigi Allen is like, you're just watching the Tasmanian Devil. Like,
I mean, you did just say he has a grander plan. I mean, he would consider himself an artist, I'm sure.
I guess there is.
I mean, a lot of these
there's a gray
crazy
area
people, yeah.
between being crazy and also having a grand plan. But I think the funny thing with Gigi Allen is like, oh, people are like, oh, that guy's so sick, and you're like, yeah, but you get that he actually believed that,
Yeah.
and maybe that's why you think is sick. But maybe what I really think is you think it's fun because you think it's all kind of an act and a joke.
Yeah.
But it's like, no, that's who that guy is. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
like, it's actually not fun if you're on board. If you're truly on board, you're as mad as him and you're just going to walk around the street punching people.
Yeah.
If you think it's just cool and hardcore, then you're not really on board.
Mm-hmm.
Which is kind of the funny thing about punk is like, what a guy actually wants to project is rarely actually taken by the fans that way. Usually they're just like, he's crazy, that's cool. We talked about this before.
Yeah, yeah.
People looking at punk is like, oh, I love the visual craziness. He's like, well, really, that's just an example of his whole view of the world. It's
Have
like,
you have
this
you
concert is his view of the world.
have you listened to Fear?
Not really.
They're
I mean,
kind
I've
of
heard them before. Like, I've had them played for me for sure.
They
but-
can be kind of, I mean, you could consider them like proto Gigi Allen in a way. I mean, they were like one of the big like Hollywood like based punk bands. For whatever reason, Hollywood was producing the most insane punk acts in the 70s. Just people going out of their way to say the fucking most fucked up shit. And I was thinking, like, it is, like, listening back, it's like, a lot of it's clearly a joke, but it's like, I've seen videos of the guy, like, of the front man, like, hitting a woman with the back of the fucking, back of the mic. It's like, how much of a joke can hitting a woman be?
Yeah, I think a lot of punk just gets really annoying when it's just guys being like, do you see why I'm doing this? And you're like, well, do you see what you're doing? Because a lot of people are like, what I'm doing means this. And you're like, but if what you're doing is just hitting a woman,
Yeah.
all anybody's going to see is you hitting a woman and
Yeah.
think you're just promoting hitting women for the sake of hitting women.
Yeah.
Rarely do people ever see something like that and go, oh, I bet that's an example of anarchy. You know what I mean? It's
Yeah.
like, it's really stupid. I think a lot of punk artists really kind of forget about the death of the author,
Yeah.
where it's like, you wrote what you wrote, but what it is how they interpret it. And how they interpret it is almost 95% of the time not what you wanted.
Yes.
It's completely different, and that's why punk ended up as just a very aesthetic, practically just hair metal, equally pointless.
Speaking of the
and
death of
just
the
to be
author,
seen.
I mean, comedy is a good example of a lot of people kind of fighting with that, of fighting
Oh,
with
yeah.
their inability to accept that what they're saying isn't how it's being taken.
I mean, that's why you always sound dumb talking about comedy.
Yeah.
Like if I'm on stage being like, oh, I try and talk about, my queerness while having a casual sort of air about it, maybe it's showing people that we shouldn't freak out about gay shit. And it's like, no, I'm probably just being a gay Uncle Tom up there selling out to homophobes to make them laugh. And that's all they're really seeing.
That's the thing also, I think, when I talk about, like, being poor and shit, where
Yeah.
it's like, are people looking at this like, I understand your worldview, or is it like fucking, oh, look at this silly guy up here
Yeah, of course.
talking about, oh man, I still hate poor people so much.
Yeah, I mean, laughter is such like it's from such just an instinct kind of place
Mhm.
that like most of the time what you're going to get laughs off is preconceived notions and understanding of things. It takes a lot to really teach somebody something new and then make them burst out laughing about the new knowledge. Like, I think that is good stand-up, you know what
Yeah.
I mean? I think like Louis good at that, of being like, here's a premise that you don't agree
But
with.
Louis is more abstract.
Yeah.
Like his ideas are more ideas rather than he's not
Yeah, I guess
he's not talking about the groups he fits into.
Yeah, he's not really like making
He's not like I was born in Mexico and this. He like never taught. You would have no clue he was born in Mexico if you just watched his stand up.
No, he has multiple jokes about it in his specials.
Does he?
He has a joke where he talks about how he's Mexican, and then people go, well, why do you look like that?
Yeah.
And then he's like, oh, I'm faking it, and has a whole joke about like he actually does do what you're talking about. He just only has a couple jokes about it because
I guess it's not like he's doing like because it's like
he didn't make like a whole hour about it. But
Yeah.
he brings it up. Definitely.
I mean, you and me have like 10 to like about 10 minutes about being gay, and
I mean,
I have like
honestly-
10 minutes about growing up broke.
I mean, honestly, it's like he also talks about being like old and fat. I don't know. I think everybody kind of does. I think he does it in a Louis way that's
Yeah.
not like, you know how it is getting old. Like, I think he
Yeah.
does it in a more subtle, interesting
I
way.
guess it is like, oh, he's just really good.
Yeah, he's honestly doing what everybody else is doing. He's just better at it.
Yeah.
I mean, really what he's doing is just like Seinfeld level logic jokes, but doing it for gross topics.
Yeah.
Just being like, what if we applied Seinfeld's talent of deconstructing and getting all the angles of one thing, but we used it for pedophilia? And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that's pretty much what Louis does. Not at all to
I think he said that actually.
degrade it, but I think
Yeah.
it's pretty clear. Because you see his early stuff, and he's just Seinfeld. He's like pretty clean, he's pretty acceptable, he's pretty relatable. When he still had hair, and he's just talking about like, have you ever seen his thing where he's like, you ever smoke when you're sick? Smokers are so dumb because we're coughing, and then we smoke, and then we cough more. And that's like an early joke of his. And then it's like, oh, okay, yeah, you take those same mechanisms, and then you just apply it to like, I hate my 3-year-old daughter.
Yeah.
And then now you have this edgy, cutting, yet still very logically and sound joke.
Yeah.
And that's, I think that's what he does very well. Which I think is, I think a great way to do stand-up.
Yeah.
I'll tell you that much. I think he's a good example of like understanding the form and then kind of doing the wrong things with it.
Mhm.
But when the form is so strong, the wrongness of that thing makes it actually a really interesting, engaging joke. Talking about stand-up is gay. But it is tough to talk about stand-up because it's being like, yeah, when I go up there and talk about shitting my pants, it's like I'm being vulnerable. And it's like, people are just laughing at you, dude.
Yeah.
Like nobody.
They think you're stupid.
Yeah, stop. You're not creating moments.
Maybe that's what people mean when they say I could never do that. Where they're like, I could never go up there and look like a fucking idiot.
I think maybe, yeah. Yeah, I think in that. I mean, stand-up is a bit inherently embarrassing.
Oh yeah.
To be like, I'm going to be the funny guy in the room.
I checked into a hotel one time, and she asked for my email, and I accidentally gave her my comedy email, and she went,
Oh, God. Can you imagine how big of an asshole the first stand-up comedian was? Just
Yeah.
like, hey, I have an idea for our vaudeville show. What if I went up in between and tried to make everybody laugh? And they're like, why do you think you're so special?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
What the fuck? These people are swallowing swords and eating fire. You think you can just go up there and talk?
Well, you know what's funny about her scoffing is it's like I was checking into a hotel in a city that's basically only known for their improv, their improv club. It was in Tempe.
Oh, yeah.
When have you ever considered Tempe and it's not been about the improv?
I've only heard it in context of the improv. I never heard about it before.
No one's been like, Tempe has really good Venezuelan food. Like,
Yeah. But that improv is great, I've heard.
oh, it's really good. But we're not going to be a podcast where like this club is really good.
We should start doing that as guys that don't get booked at clubs a lot, of just being like, one of our favorite clubs. Comedy.
Friends of the podcast. The
Comedy
bookers
Fort,
are
one of my favorite places to play when I'm in Colorado. I've never done stand-up in Colorado, but definitely one of my favorite places to
yeah.
play.
The Ontario Improv, one of my favorite clubs in the nation.
Such a good room.
Yeah,
Oh, God. Irvine Improv, so sick. I absolutely love it.
But it's so funny to be like, yeah, one of my favorite clubs in the nation. It's East.
It's
east to the point where I can just, if someone asks where it was, I could be like, it's east.
It's fucking east. All right.
It's an hour east.
Yeah, just a big shout out to Magoobies and Comedy on State and all these clubs that I do all the time, and they're some of my favorites to play.
Oh yeah, I love going to Baltimore and doing Magoobies.
I love going to Baltimore. I love going to Comedy on State in Madison, Wisconsin. I love Hyenas in Dallas. These are all clubs I do, and I have good relationship with all the owners.
I would love to visit Baltimore.
Baltimore, all our fans in Baltimore.
Yeah, shout out if you're trying to get us booked up in Baltimore.
If 50 people in Baltimore say they would come to a show, we will set up a show and lose money.
Oh, we will lose thousands of dollars.
But we'll get
we will
flights.
we will lose. We're going to be in debt to every credit company over this Baltimore show.
If we can sell 25 tickets in Baltimore, we will fly out to Baltimore to do one night only, Dagnabbit Boys.
And we promise
stand-up
that we will
comedy
light
show.
both of our pubes on fire on stage.
We'll light our pubes on fire, we'll cover ourselves in shit, and we'll say that it's something bigger than...
Yeah. We'll be like, hey, we're like the Gigi Allen of stand-up.
We'll be like, yeah, we'll
I've heard guys called the Gigi Allen of stand-up, and it's like, what do they do? And it's like, they say shit that's really gross.
Yeah, probably. I mean, why? That's a terrible idea.
Yeah.
The Gigi Allen of stand-up.
No one wants to watch it.
We're the Timothy McVeighs of stand-up.
That's not a good...
Because we're smart and well-read.
Yeah. Are you sure you're not thinking of the Unabomber?
No.
Is Timothy McVeigh, was he like a smart guy?
No, he was just like a traumatized white supremacist.
Oh, one point I was thinking about when you were talking about how people like Dick Filth earlier, I forgot to mention, I was thinking about like all those guys now are school shooters.
Yeah, why aren't they doing art?
Yeah,
I feel like nobody wants to hear from them.
I feel like the Columbine kids might have written some interesting shit.
We should really make everybody feel like we'd want to hear from them because it might stop them from shooting up school. I'd rather have more bad art than I would dead kids. Like if
I don't know, man.
Like if we convince us, like what about this? You go up to a school shooter and you're like, okay, you can't kill the school, but you can have a notebook and you can draw whatever you want in that notebook. You can draw comics of killing all the kids in your school, and that's totally fun.
I guess those guys write manifestos, but like, is that art? I feel like a good manifesto can be art.
Not really. It's more like philosophy, if anything.
Is philosophy not an art?
I don't think so. I think it's a practice is too vague. I think it's like I think it's a study. It's like an intellectual. It's the same as like history. You know?
Well, what would you consider like, so there's like philosophical novels and it's like, so they are, the main point of writing it is to get across their philosophy through
if it's a novel, then it's art.
Yeah.
Because you're creating something out of nothing. But
Nietzsche wrote a bunch of like philosophy that was basically, there would be a story in it.
Yeah, like thus spoke Zarathustra.
And it's like, he's very purposeful with his language,
yeah,
you know?
Sometimes art has a point for sure.
Yeah.
To, like be an allegory. Allegories are art. But, it's like Jean-Paul Sartre has Nausea.
Yeah.
Which is a philosophical novel.
He's got all those plays.
Art. But then he also has Being and Nothingness, which is not art. Which I think is essentially the same as a textbook.
I really want to read The Wall, I think is what it's called, which is about these bunch of guys like who are about to be sentenced to death. It's a short story collection.
Who wrote that?
Sartre.
Oh. You ever read The Stranger?
Yes. I don't like it.
It's kind of one of those books that like hipster kids got really into and thought was cool to read, but
I think that might be why I don't like it.
Yeah, I think there's but you also got to remember it's like these books are good for a reason. Might be trendy with the young art kids now, but they're good. I don't know. I liked the ending a lot. I just thought the ending was great because it's like a point that I guess you could say a lot of people would think sounds dumb, but it's like he's like staring up at the small window he has before he's going to get killed or put in prison forever or killed, right? Yeah, he gets executed.
Yes,
and he's just doing that thing where he's just sort of like, I just did everything I did and it just is what it is.
Yeah.
And I'm here right now. And it's not like a badass thing of like, fuck it. But it's just very interesting to make the pointless but poignant point. How about that? Pointless but poignant point?
Yeah.
Of like being sentenced to death and just being like, everything I did is just my life. And it is what I think that holds a lot more weight than being like, what you did is so evil.
Yeah.
Just to be like, what I did is what I did.
You know what I find
then you have to really look at stuff.
I really like the American novels that influenced The Stranger, because he was very influenced by like 30s and 40s
Really?
like noir
Oh,
stuff.
I didn't know that.
Like his
That makes
biggest
sense.
influence is The Postman Always Rings Twice, which is a great novel.
Oh,
And
okay.
it's kind of weird. He like kind of strips those novels down to the point that it's like only the philosophical components.
We should do a live podcast on a beach in Algiers.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that would be cool.
Mm.
We should start doing live podcasts in famous existential literature places.
Yeah. I mean, I feel like our podcast is probably gonna. I mean, if this podcast ever pops off, we're gonna have a bunch of French people hitting us up.
I would
Like
really
we
love
we
it.
love lowbrow art.
Yeah, I would really love it if like we had like the only people that listen to us were like just philosophers, you know, of people that are like they are the epitome of detachment. What it means to look at the world with no love, with only a critical eye, but also the freedom to play.
Yeah.
The play is much more than just play. It is the personification of freedom. He became German at the end.
I was just thinking that
if we had a bunch,
he turned into fucking who's the motherfucker who made rockets? Von Braun.
yeah, Werner von Braun would
Yeah.
love our podcast, the Nazi rocket scientist.
Yeah.
It would be really funny if we had a bunch of German existentialists that liked our podcast. Like Werner Herzog is just like, it is the end of the earth. It is like staring at the vast ice wall of the Arctic, knowing beyond you is only confusion, but walking with confidence. It would be great if our podcast became the signifier of the Gen X walking into a burning world, of like, what they show is the fearlessness of a generation born without hope, with no hope of retirement or stability or a world to live in, less and less arable land every year. Dagnabbit boys shows people that even in a sandy desert, there is hope for water. Something like that. I like that a lot. We start getting critiques.
Yeah.
But we're being written about in like literature journals. You know, like those like really fancy magazines, or like scientific journals, you know. Harper's is doing articles on us. The New Yorker is writing articles.
They're breaking down the significance of you saying that fucking Joe Biden was gonna suck the cum out of his dog's ass. He's gonna fuck his dog up the ass and suck the cum out.
They're like, young American philosophers have turned the world on its head. It would be really funny if our podcast destroyed modern philosophical thought. Like somehow somehow our podcasts like decimated postmodern philosophical advancements.
And like the next is like post Dagnabbit. Fucking.
Yeah, like even though philosophy, I guess, is kind of all subjective and people just kind of pick their favorite, somehow ours just wipes out all philosophy before it. And it's just like everything they're saying has proven to us that all of those philosophies could not be right. And we don't know if they're right, but they've proven that the other ones are not. And we can no more existentialism, stoicism, everything has gone out.
So should we be mad at the people who don't watch our podcast because of how important it is?
Yeah, I mean, people don't really realize that a lot of podcasts are trying to start some sort of. Yeah, I mean, we're trying to start a revolution of thought at the most basic elements.
Oh yes,
people are trying to be like, here's how you should think as a man, and we're like, we're not even close to man. We're still.
Here's how you should think as a monkey with shit in its face.
Yeah, we want people to rethink what it means to be, not to be alive, not to be dead, to be. What being is objectively, and then how you interpret it subjectively, and if there's really any interaction between the two. Because I want people to listen to our podcast and go, oh, I really enjoyed that podcast, but also I don't know if any of my perception is real at all, or if I really heard anything. I might just be sitting in a well screaming. Yeah,
they're just walking around their apartment trying to figure out what's the name of stuff they own.
I want people to.
They're looking at their bed like, what is this? Why do I do this?
I want people to finish an episode of our podcast and then not be able to recognize a single thing in their life. Like walk into their house and see their wife.
They have to use the bathroom, and every time they take a shit, they're like, am I taking a shit or am I sitting on an anthill?
Yeah, I want our podcast to be like that one one art piece that's a urinal.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I want them to rethink our most basic tools and walk into a bathroom and see a toilet and no longer know how to work it. And because we've broken down their thoughts.
If our
about life.
podcast can make it so less people wipe their ass, I feel like that's all we need.
Yeah, I want the entire.
I want the world to stink of unwiped shit.
I want the citizens of Berlin to walk around with diarrhea in their pants, eating boogers, and saying it's because of the new thought revolution that's been led by American philosophers Cooper Light and Hussein Bianchi. Also, I'm done with this. We're not podcasters, we're philosophers.
Oh, yeah, dude.
Okay?
Philosophy podcast. We should start, like, listing our podcast as philosophy.
Yes, this is philosophy. I'm so sick of people trying to think we're being funny.
That this is like a dumb podcast. People have called our podcast childish. But really, they don't understand that we're actually like the Ubermensch.
Yeah, I'm talking about Johnny Dog shit trying to shove nacho cheese into my gaped asshole and what that means for...
I'm sick of this Johnny Dog shit saltwater enema program he has.
It's very clear that Heidegger has no place in the new world we've created, okay? None of these guys do. All the classics, they don't belong. It's over.
Anyway, let's wrap up this podcast and the next episode we start up on the revolution we've created.
This podcast is like if Richard Feynman took acid.
Yeah.
Me and Cooper are the worst, most sucker MCs in the world. We have bad breath, we smell bad, and everybody that we've dated cheats on us because we're not good partners. We have bad teeth and they're rotting, and we're poor, and we come from a bad family, and there's photos of our girlfriends sucking other guys' dicks.